Try this quietly before we begin. Think of a day from many years ago, an ordinary one, not a birthday, not a wedding, not the day you got the news that changed everything, just an ordinary Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, some day that had nothing scheduled to make it memorable. Now notice what actually comes back to you. It is rarely the thing you were so certain would matter, not the meeting, not the deadline, not the number in the account or the title on the door. What returns uninvited is smaller than that. The way the light came through a particular window, someone's laugh from another room, a hand resting briefly on your shoulder, the smell of something cooking while you did nothing in particular, a sentence someone said to you, so lightly they probably don't remember saying it, that you have carried for 20 years. We spend so much of life assuming that tomorrow is keeping a ledger, telling our progress, recording our achievements, waiting to see whether we measured up. We imagine it as a kind of quiet accountant, patient and exact, adding up what we built and what we finished. But tomorrow does not remember like that. It never did. What if tomorrow is not keeping score of what you accomplished? What if it is only keeping the moments when you were actually there? Awake inside your own life, paying attention instead of somewhere else entirely. Tonight, let us sit with that instead. Not what you should get done before tomorrow comes, just this: what is tomorrow actually going to keep? Part 1. The ledger we imagine. We are taught gently and constantly to think of our life as something added up. Grades, promotions, milestones, the visible proof that time was well spent. So we imagine the future holding a ledger with our name on it, and we imagine ourselves being judged by its totals. This shapes almost everything. We chase the entries we think will count. We stay late for the line that says we stayed late. We collect the certificates, the titles, the almost numb satisfaction of crossing something off. And there is nothing wrong with effort, or ambition, or wanting to build something real. But somewhere along the way, we start to believe that this ledger is the whole story, that if the columns are full, the life underneath them must be full too. Then one evening, without any warning, you remember a day from long ago, and none of it is what you expected. You do not remember the report you finished. You remember your father's hand on a steering wheel. You do not remember the promotion. You remember a stranger who let you go first in a long line on a hard day and said nothing and drove on. Memory is a strange kind of judge. It does not care what the ledger says. It keeps what moved through you, not what you produced. This does not mean the ledger is meaningless. Work matters. Responsibility matters. But it means the ledger was never the whole assignment. Somewhere beside it, quietly unbothered by our spreadsheets, something else has been keeping its own private record, and it has never once asked to see our resume. There is a kind of arithmetic we rarely notice, because it happens in numbers, too small to register. A cup of tea made without being asked. A text that says, "Only thinking of you, no need to reply." Someone waiting an extra 5 minutes so you would not have to walk in alone. None of these would survive being written on the resume. They are too small, too plain, too easily forgotten in the moment they happen. And yet they are exactly the things that seem to survive the longest in us. Longer often than the large and celebrated ones. Think of the difference between a grand gesture and a quiet habit. A grand gesture happens once, is admired once, and fades into a story told at parties. A quiet habit happens 1,000 times without anyone applauding it, and somehow it becomes the shape of how you were loved, how you loved someone else. We tend to save our best selves for the occasions we think deserve them. The anniversary, the big apology, the carefully planned surprise. But tomorrow, it turns out, is not particularly interested in your best behavior on your best day. It is quietly gathering evidence from your ordinary Tuesdays, from how you spoke to someone when you were tired, from whether you looked up from your phone when they were talking, from the version of you that shows up when nothing is being watched. This is not a call to grand transformation. It is smaller and in some ways harder. It is the suggestion that meaning does not usually arrive wearing a costume. It arrives disguised as something too ordinary to notice, and it is only later looking back that we understand what it was carrying. There is a particular kind of gift that costs nothing, and yet is one of the hardest things we can offer another person, our full, undivided attention. We live now with 100 quiet exits, always within reach, a phone within arm's length, a screen glowing in another room, a mind that has learned to drift toward tomorrow's tasks, even while today's conversation is still happening in front of us. And most of the time, no one says anything about it, because it has become so normal to be only halfway presented that we no longer notice the difference. But the people we love notice, not always consciously, but somewhere they register whether you were actually looking at them or only facing their direction, whether your silence was listening or waiting for your turn to speak, whether for those few minutes they had all of you or only the outline of you, while the rest of your attention was somewhere else entirely. This is what makes real presence feel almost rare now. Not because people have stopped caring, but because attention has become the thing everyone quietly competes for. And we so often give ours away in small pieces to things that will not remember receiving it. Think of the last time someone gave you their complete attention. No phone, no clock watching, nothing behind their eyes but you. It was probably was not a long conversation. It may have been 10 minutes, but you likely remember it precisely, the way you remember very few ordinary 10-minute conversations. That is what attention gives someone. Not advice, not solutions, not even comfort when exactly. It gives them the rare experience of being fully seen by another person, for a little while, without competition. And it turns out this is one of the few things that tomorrow reliably keeps. Not the eloquent things we said, but the quality of silence in which we listened. Part 4. The Blur and the Flash. Most of your days will not be remembered. This is not a sad fact, it is simply how memory works. The mind cannot hold every hour of every year, so it lets almost all of it go, soft and blurred together. A general impression of a season, a stretch of years that feels, in hindsight, like a single long afternoon. And then, without asking permission, certain moments refuse to blur. They stay sharp when everything around them has faded. A particular afternoon light, a specific sentence, the exact sound of a door closing behind someone who was leaving for good, or the exact sound of one opening when someone finally came home. If you look closely at the moments that refuse to fade, you will notice something. They are almost never about achievement. They are almost always about connection, a moment when you were fully with another person, or fully inside your own life, without distraction, without rehearsal, without one eye on what came next. This tells us something quite but important about how to spend the day. We cannot make every hour unforgettable, and trying to would exhaust us and likely ruin the very thing we were chasing. But we can, now and then, allow ourselves to actually arrive somewhere instead of merely passing through it. We can let a few ordinary minutes each day be entered completely, instead of half attended on the way to the next thing. You will not remember most of this year. That is simply true, and there is a strange relief in accepting it. But a handful of moments from it will stay with you for the rest of your life, and you likely have no way of predicting right now which ones they will be. The only thing you can do is make yourself a little more available to them when they arrive. Part 5. what you can give it. So here's a quieter question, the one worth carrying instead of the one about ledgers and totals. What are you giving tomorrow to remember? You do not have to redesign your whole life to answer this. You do not need a grand plan or a new routine printed and pinned to the wall. You only need perhaps an ordinary exchange today where you actually put the phone down. One conversation where you let the silence stay a little longer instead of rushing to fill it. One moment where you really notice the person in front of you instead of already composing your reply. Perhaps it is calling someone you have been meaning to call, not to solve anything, just to hear their voice. Perhaps it is sitting a little longer at the table after the meal has ended, not because there is anything left to say, but because leaving too quickly would mean missing the quiet part that comes after. Perhaps it is simply looking properly at someone you see every day and have almost stopped seeing at all. None of this will show up anywhere official. No one will congratulate you for it. It will not appear on any record you can point to later as proof that the day mattered. And that is, in its own way, exactly the point. The things tomorrow keeps are rarely the things we did for the record. You cannot control which moments will stay sharp and which will blur, but you can control a little how present you are when they happen. And presence, it seems, is what tomorrow was actually collecting, quietly, without ever telling us it was keeping count. Ending. So we returned to the ledger we imagined at the beginning, the one we thought was tallying our achievements, waiting somewhere ahead of us with the final verdict. It turns out that the ledger was never really there. What tomorrow keeps instead is something far less official and far more intimate. The light through a window, a hand on the shoulder, the sound of someone's real voice when they finally said what they meant. The 10 minutes when you gave someone all of your attention instead of half of it. You cannot go back and relive the days that have already blurred together. What you have today, still unwritten, still capable of becoming one of the moments that stays sharp instead of one that fades. Not because anything large you do with it, only because of how present you allow yourself to be inside. So before you close this evening, think of one person, one conversation, one small, unremarkable moment you might give your full attention to tomorrow. Not to prove anything, not to be remembered by anyone else, only because it may turn out to be one of the ones that stays. Sit with that, let it settle, let it be enough for tonight, simply to have remembered what tomorrow actually remembers. If this reflection stayed with you, you may want to subscribe and continue walking through the Tomorrow series with us.